Hi guys, today we're going over 1.7 part 2. We're going to be solving nonlinear inequalities. So to solve inequalities involving squares and other powers of the variable, we use factoring together with the following principles. So we're going to use the signs of products or quotients. If a product or quotient has an even number of negative factors, then its value is positive. And if the product of the quotient has an odd number of negative factors, then the value is negative. We're going to go over that in a few examples. Solving nonlinear inequalities, we have guidelines for solving nonlinear inequalities. First, you want to move all the terms to one side. If necessary, rewrite the inequality so that all non-zero terms appear on one side of the inequality sign. If the non-zero side of the inequality involves quotients, bring them in the common denominator. So treat them just like if they were an equation, but you're going to just, instead of an equal sign, you're going to have an inequality. You're going to have different inequalities. You're going to have greater than or equal to, which are considered, I'll do that after. And then you have less than or equal to. Now keep in mind, you have different things. You have or, well, I'm going to go over all that. It's going to be negative infinity to a number included. You're going to combine it, and then from that number to infinity, that's going to be the domain. If you have an and, it's going to be included, so it's going to be from a number to another number. It can be from infinity to infinity, from infinity to infinity, but it's not always going to be the case. As we do examples, that's going to make sense. So we factor the non-zero sides of the inequality. Step 3, we find the intervals. Determine the value of which each factor is 0. Those are the or and ands that I just wrote up there. This number will divide the real line into intervals. List the intervals that are determined by these numbers. 4, you're going to make a table or a diagram. Use test values to make the table and diagram. The test values are just numbers that you would choose. So you choose the numbers. Make sure you choose numbers that make sense. As we go over it, it's going to become easier. And number 5, you're going to solve. Use the sign table to find the intervals for which the inequality is satisfied. Check whether the endpoints of these intervals satisfy the inequalities. They may happen if the inequality involves less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. So remember, brackets are for included. Parentheses are for non-included. Something to note, infinities, either negative or positive, always have parentheses. They're never going to be included because you cannot technically reach infinity. So example 3, solving quadratic inequalities. So for this one, I'm going to zoom in. The first thing you want to do is move everything to one side. It's going to be minus 5x. We're going to do x squared minus 5x is less than or equal to negative 6. I'll add the 6. That's going to give us x squared minus 5x plus 6 is less than or equal to 0. Now we're going to look for factors of 6 that are going to add up to negative 5 and multiply to positive 6. So that's going to be negative 3 and negative 2. So we're left with x minus 3. X minus 2 is less than or equal to 0. So we're going to equal them just like we usually do, the same exact steps. Just instead of an equal sign, we're going to use the inequality. That's going to give us x is less than or equal to 3, or x is less than or equal to 2. Now, if we were to graph this, we're going to put a line at 2 and a line at 3. They're both closed circles. All right, so we got the 2 and the 3. How do we figure out the interval? This is where the test comes in. Here's where you're going to choose numbers that will make it easier for you. I'm going to choose 0 because it's to the left. I'm going to choose 4. And then here I'm just going to choose 2.5 because it's in between. Now let's figure out which ones are true. We're going to plug it into the original equation, so into the x. So we're going to plug in, let's say 0 first. It's going to be 0 squared is less than or equal to 5, 0 minus 6. So we get 0 is less than or equal to 0 minus 6. 0 is less than or equal to negative 6. That is not true, so that's not part of your interval. Now let's test out the 2.5. So instead of writing 2.5, I'm going to write it as 5 over 2. So this is one test. 5 over 2 squared is less than or equal to 5. 5 over 2 minus 6. This is 25 over 4 is less than or equal to 25 over 2 minus 6. I'm going to go ahead and combine what I can. I'm going to multiply this one times 2 first to be able to combine it. So I get 25 over 4 is less than or equal to 13 over 2. I'm going to multiply again times 2 in order to be able to check them. So 25 over 4 is less than or equal to 26 over 4. Now this is true, so the middle is part of our interval. And the last thing it is you need to check is the last one. So I'm going to choose 4. So it's going to be 4 squared is less than or equal to 5 times 4 minus 6. So it's 16 less than or equal to 20 minus 6. You're going to get 16 is less than or equal to 14. Again, that's not a true statement. So your final interval is actually from 2 to 3. So you would write it as bracket 2 comma 3. And then this would be your actual final answer. But you have to test out the intervals. If you don't, then you won't get an actual solution. Now I'm going to open up a new slide for number 4 to make sure I don't run out of space. So number 4, let me rewrite it, was 2x squared minus x is greater than 1. First step, move everything to one side. I do that by subtracting the 1. So I get 2x squared minus x minus 1 is greater than 0. Now I'm going to go ahead and try and factor this out. So I'm going to look for factors of negative 2 that add up to negative 1. So we get negative 2, positive 1. So 2x minus 2, 2x plus 1. I'm going to go ahead and simplify this one. So I get x minus 2, 2x, sorry, not x minus 2, x minus 1, and then 2x plus 1 is greater than 0. That's going to, now we can separate the brackets or the parentheses. X minus 1 is greater than 0, and 2x plus 1 is greater than 0. So we get x is greater than 1. Here we get 2x is greater than negative 1. X is greater than a half. So these are our points. So I'm going to draw a little line. We have negative a half, and here we have 1. Now they're going to be open circles because of the inequality is non or equal to. So those would be our open circles. Now let's find out which area it is. I'm going to start with the middle. Here we have a value of 0. Perfect value to start off with. So it's going to be 2 times 0 minus 0. It's greater than 1. So 2 times 0 squared is 0 minus 0. 1. So it's 0 minus 0 is greater than 1. So 0 is greater than 1. This is not true. Now, usually you can stop there because it will make sense. You're going to either have one or the other. Either the middle is going to make sense or the sides are going to make sense. I'm going to plug in the sides right now just so you guys see it. I'm going to plug in 2. So I can get 2 times 2 squared minus 2 is greater than 1. So I'm going to get 2 times 4 minus 2 is greater than 1. 8 minus 2 is greater than 1. 6 is greater than 1. So we know that one's true. And I'm going to find the value of negative 2 just to test it out. Again, this is a test. Once you get an answer, it usually works for the rest. So 2 times negative 2 squared minus negative 2 is greater than 1. So we get 2 times 4 plus 2 is greater than 1. 8 plus 2 is greater than 1. 10 is greater than 1. So we see that that side works. Knowing that, our solution is actually going to be outwards, not inwards, so it's the same part. So our solution is actually going to be from negative infinity. Again, you read it from left to right. So negative infinity, it reaches the half point because it's an open circle. We're going to do a parentheses. 1, comma, infinity. That is your final answer for that one. All right, for this one, I'm going to start number 1. We get x squared minus 9 is greater than or equal to 0. That is x plus 3. X minus 3 is greater than or equal to 0. So we get that x plus 3 is equal to 0. X minus 3 is equal to 0. Sorry, not equal to. Greater than or equal to. So we get that here x is greater than or equal to negative 3. X is greater than or equal to 3. So we have here negative 3, 3. I'm going to try out the 0. Again, you just have to try it once. I did it the other way, all 3. You don't need to solve all 3. As long as you plug it in once, it's either going to work on the outside or on the inside. So I'm going to try 0. So 0 squared is greater than or equal to 9. Right here, this is 0. 0 is not greater than or equal to 9, so we know it doesn't work. So we go to the left and we go to the right. So our solution is negative infinity to negative 3, bracket, u, bracket, 3, comma, infinity. Again, this will be your solution. For number 2, again, there's nothing for us to move, so I'm just going to go ahead and factor the x. So we get x minus 2 is less than or equal to 0. We have x is less than or equal to 0, and x minus 2 is less than or equal to 0. So x is less than or equal to 0, and x is less than or equal to 2. When I plug that in, I have 0 and 2, both closed circles, so they're included. I'm going to just test out 1. 1 is in between, easy enough numbers. That's when I mentioned that you guys want to choose numbers that are easy and make sense. That's why I've been choosing zeros, I've been choosing 1s, I've been choosing 2s. Small numbers are your friends here of a test. So you get 1 minus 2 is less than or equal to 0. So you get negative 1 is less than or equal to 0. We see that's true, so our solution is actually going to be right here in the middle. Our interval is going to be from 0 to 2 with a bracket, and that is your final answer. Now let's look at 3. Again, nothing for us to do here. We just have to factor it out. Factors of 6 that add up to 5 and 3 and 2. So we get x plus 3. X plus 2 is greater than 0. So we get x plus 3 is greater than 0. X plus 2 is greater than 0. So we get x is greater than negative 3. X is greater than negative 2. We go ahead and plot them, negative 3, negative 2. Now you can test whichever one you want. I'm actually going to go ahead and test right here. 0 would be right here, so I'm just going to plug in 0, see what happens. So 0 squared plus 5 times 0 plus 6 is greater than 0. So we get 0 plus 6 is greater than 0. 6 is greater than 0. So it works. These are open circles. And because it works, we know we're going to go towards the outside. So our solution is going to be from negative infinity to negative 3, u, negative 2, comma, infinity. So this would be your solution. All right. For number 4, I'm going to go ahead and subtract the x, subtract the 2, and I get x squared minus x minus 2 is less than 0. So we're going to look at factors of negative 2. So negative 2 and 1. I multiply negative 2 and add up to negative 1. So we get x minus 2. And then x plus 1 is less than 0. So we get x minus 2 is less than 0. X plus 1 is less than 0. So we get x is less than 2. X is less than negative 1. So we're going to plug those in. Negative 1, 2. Again, open circle. I'm going to try out 0 just because it's in the middle. And 0 is a number I love to test. Makes it easier. So 0 squared is less than 0 plus 2. So 0 is less than 2. This is true. So our solution is going to be right here in the middle. So it's going to be from negative 1 to 2 in parentheses because the solution is not included. Now let's go ahead and do 5. For 5, we're going to go ahead and combine what we can. We're going to subtract the 3x squared minus 3x squared. It's going to give us 2x squared plus 3x. I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 2 as well. Minus 2 is greater than or equal to 0. Now we're going to look at factors of negative 4 that add up to positive 3. So 4 minus 1 is going to give us positive 3. And 4 times negative 1 gives us negative 4. So we're going to get 2x plus 4, 2x minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. I'm going to simplify this to get x plus 2. 2x minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. So we're going to get x plus 2 is greater than or equal to 0. 2x minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. So we get x is greater than or equal to negative 2. And 2x is greater than or equal to 1. So x is greater than or equal to a half. I'm going to go ahead and plug them in. So negative 2, a half, close circle for both. And let's figure out the values. I'm going to plug in, again, 0. So it's going to be 5 times 0 squared plus 3 times 0 is greater than or equal to 3 times 0 squared plus 2. 0 plus 0 is greater than 0 plus 2. So 0 is greater or equal to 2. So it's not true. We're going to be aiming the other way. So our solution is going to be from negative infinity to negative 2 with a bracket. And then bracket a half to infinity. Remember, bracket means included. And if you guys remember, the or equal to is what tells you if it's included or not. Then for 6, I'm going to go ahead and move the 3 over to get x squared plus 2x minus 3 is greater than 0. Factors of negative 3 that add up to 2 are 3 and negative 1. So we're going to get x plus 3. X minus 1 is greater than 0. So we get x plus 3 is greater than 0. X minus 1 is greater than 0. So we get x is greater than negative 3. X is greater than 1. So I'm going to go ahead and plug them in. So negative 3, 1, both open circles. I'm going to plug in 0. Again, testing 0 for me is the easiest. I highly recommend testing 0. So we're going to get 0 plus 0 is greater than 3. 0 is greater than 3, so it's not true. Therefore, this is not included. And the solution is going to be on the outside. So it's going to be from negative infinity to negative 3. U, 1 to infinity. This being your final answer. Now you do guys have homework on Canvas. This is part 2. This is the homework is due tomorrow. I'll see you guys back tomorrow in class.